Greg, here we are again. Yeah. Another year has passed. Last year we were talking about health equity and AI. Now a year fast forward, everything feels like it's changed. What's changed the most to you?
So much has changed and yet so much stays the same, right? And these years flash by. So a year in AI terms, I guess, is a million years in so many ways. But I think what's most changed is we were talking about AI a year ago. We're still talking about it now, but it does feel like there is a deeper adoption. And for the agencies, for brands, for the sort of partners, we've all made huge leaps and strides. And that has changed the work, I think. But whether or not it's yet started to really change all the outcomes and become, truly like, is it everything fundamentally different a year since we sat here? I don't know about that, right? I don't know. So I think there's still the promise, but definitely there's a lot of work been done.
I think from our side, I fully agree. And I think where we've gone is the technology now has matured in a way where we can now usefully find purpose for it. And it's actually changing the way that we're operating. And we're finding our new tools and products, which I'm sure we'll talk about. We're actually finding that it's compressing the time it takes to do actions along the campaign's life cycle, right? Whether it's planning or activation, even optimization, I find it's doing, it's actually compressing that timeline. And I think it's actually allowing us to achieve better personalization, better performance. So I think that's probably the operating apparatus around the campaigns that it's that we're finding it to be the most disruptive in a very good way.
When we're looking at healthcare, obviously time from a patient journey point of view is a really critical element of outcomes. So time in itself is kind of interesting. Do you think, I think that time saved and time spent is one of the biggest changes from AI. Would you say that's like the number one piece right now?
Absolutely. And I think to your point about time along the patient journey, we used to be running campaigns where kind of the de facto way of doing it was we'd run a campaign, we'd wait for weeks or months in market to get the performance, then we'd have to go look at a PDF and then analyze it and then go make a bunch of recommendations and then change it. That process, that feedback loop would take literally half a year at best, right? So I think what AI is allowing us to do now is all that interpretive work, all the analysis, and then the execution all can now be automated in a literally same day. Yeah. And so given the speed of the data, given the speed of the technology, the AI itself, its ability to interpret, analyze, and act, we're finding a tremendous amount of lift, and just lift in performance, time savings. I think honestly just freeing us up to do more innovative and more thoughtful stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes the work more interesting for everyone as well, right? It's like a lot of our junior and mid-level staff are also feeling like, okay, this thing, building a plan or rebuilding a plan around a particular indication or something would have been like, okay, this is 4 hours work or 4 weeks work. And now it's like, let's spend an hour and now I've got a couple of versions of what we could be doing with this. And so the job kind of gets more about the innovation and the creativity, which is where I think what we've done together and what the teams have been doing becomes really valuable, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know the work we're doing is pretty exemplary of, I think, what the application of this will do to the way that we can actually pull more data into the fingertips of the people who are planning, strategizing, finding new and innovative ways to engage with patients and providers across the country. And I think it just serves to the point that, when you are using these tools, if you can integrate them into the way that you are kind of strategizing, planning, and executing, you actually can deliver moments and engagements that are going to drive more impact. And so, I think the technology where it's going, obviously it's maturing, continuing to mature, but there definitely was this inflection point, I think probably 6 months ago, where the technology felt real. And I think we're moving from this kind of speculative phase where, we all kind of were thinking at CES, just even this year, we're like, oh, this is going to be, it's on PowerPoints, right? To points now where we actually have proof of concepts and we're now scaling that delivery. We're doing that with Helix AI right now with Havas, which is
the Helix AI thing. I think these are genuinely exciting. It is coming to life, right? I think when we talked about Health Equity Marketplace, it felt like it was a very real way of working, but the AI was in a way only a part of that discussion. Whereas what Helix AI is getting to next and what we're doing is it's like next generation.
Next generation. Yeah, and so kind of what Helix AI, I'm sure you and your team know this well, but health data is immensely valuable, and the fact that we're able to take 240 million patient lives de-identified, but then be able to get that in the hands of people who can use that data more like strategically, versus like kind of the previous way where we'd have to go through an analytics team to pull the data, and then you have to wait days or weeks, usually maybe more, to actually find those insights and inform strategy. You can now just have, as a strategist, someone who's non-technical, be able to ask questions of that really rich health data set. So when you're doing campaigns for like health equity, being able to find deserts, like health deserts across the country, becomes a trivial task, right? You're able to look at the outcomes, look at the diagnoses, find the geographies around the country that are underserved by our health system. And that's the most exciting part.
It's really about, the health equity marketplace was about, it's about underserved marketplaces, and therefore where's the health desert and how do you access something? I think what's interesting, I mean, the thing that's come up more recently from a lot of clients is about when you're talking about the scale of data that we're able to access with us together or within the health space, the other big problem is that it's one of the most siloed data areas. So a lot of clients have been really focused in the last 6 months, not only on like taxonomy and accessibility of data, but how have we been able to work with them to really genuinely break down the barriers between sorts of data. And some of that is exactly what I think you're saying, like it's like, how can I access the data and how can I give sometimes non-technical people the access? And that's really what the AI allows you to do when you're making that a much more natural conversation.
We're finding that context is key. I think that's becoming more and more true as we're finding ways to integrate AI. And to your point about all these different disparate data sets, the ability and like the knowledge of how to link those data sets in thoughtful, creative ways, we can kind of build that like logical infrastructure that actually frees up the creative elements where you don't have to know that this code means this diagnosis or that this NDC code is this competitor's right. We can abstract all of that complexity away for someone just to be able to come in and say, look, this is the treatment, this is what I'm trying to get to market. Tell me about the competitive landscape, tell me about the market dynamics, the payers, the access formulary, and then help me design a plan that takes all of those inputs and context and allows me to be most effective with my engagements. I think that to me is like we're building kind of a foundational layer and element here with Helix AI in partnership with Havas. And I think we're just getting started on that, and I'm so excited for what that's going to mean for us.
Yeah, you're right. That complexity. I mean, it's one of the most complex marketing spaces because of all those the players and the detail. And so the more you can use this incredibly complex technology to actually make the technology go away and feel like you're just interacting with that data more clearly, I think it's really important. But do you think, like, I found that like it's changing the dialogue with healthcare marketers, so our clients, because they're quite complex organizations as well. And we're all on this journey together, right? To some extent, as an agency, as a partner, you're sort of providing advice, but we're kind of all learning it at the same time in some ways. But have you found as well that it's changing the dynamic of how marketers show up too? Because I think we're seeing that with clients.
I think just even compared to maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the questions that are being asked are sharper. They're more informed by the data, and I think there's a real thirst and need for insights that actually can drive the business forward. I think baseline expectation is that AI is going to, as an agency, as a partner, AI is going to, it's a default way to then help extract insights that then can be used more thoughtfully, right? And then the marketer almost demands that you have to have that as a baseline input. So I think the questions are sharper. I think the types of just as a byproduct of that, the engagements are richer. They're more relevant. They're better personalized. Just because we now have this context that's informed by data, and I think we're able to actually do our jobs better.
I found it really weird coming into healthcare marketing over the last, I guess, 5-10 years in the US, and because I'd look at it as an industry, and because it's such an advanced technical industry, my expectations were that marketing in that industry was as advanced and technical. And I think because of all the complexity you talked about, it really wasn't. There was a lot of like laggard behavior because either the data availability was harder for people to penetrate than it was in other areas, or it was a different kind of focus because of that complexity. And I think now it's one of the most compelling areas to apply that insight piece.
Yeah.
Also the measurement piece,
Yeah.
right? Because I think on the other end of it, we're also really helping clients to be able to say, like you said, like what are the outcomes of it, and how do you access and look at what happened through that data set in a cleaner way as well.
And I think one of my favorite quotes about from a partner that was using Helix AI, and you guys are seeing this as well, is that the time it takes to actually get the answer from those questions. It used to require a marketer to go to their analytics team, their BI team. To quote them, it would take 6 weeks to 8 weeks. I have to wait if they even responded to this ticket that I opened up in a ticketing software platform to answer my question. I then get the data weeks later, then have to analyze it, figure out what was wrong with the data, send back another ticket to correct it. So that's all now being collapsed with the Helix AI in a matter of minutes. You can get the same answer, it's interactive, you can tweak it, you can tune it. And I think the organizational kind of, these very complex scientific organizations actually are suffering from the complexity of the actual org structure that makes it harder, right? And it's more fragmented, it's more siloed. And I think the most transformative effect here with AI on the business org is that it's going to start to integrate all these pieces more cleanly, where now we're democratizing access to this data. People can get the data they need. It's almost decentralizing that area of expertise into the hands of the marketer, where in their phone or on their computer, they can get the same insights that would have taken weeks to actually get that.
Yeah, you can't make the most of a Helix AI of an opportunity unless the data's clean and the organization's ready.
Correct.
And so much, I mean, we've spent so much time in the agency in the last 12 months restructuring teams to get there. But it's important, like, because obviously we look at that across creative as well as media, and it's interesting because obviously a lot of the conversation, like with every client everywhere, is how can I get to market faster, but how do I like feed the pipe of what content's needed? And in pharma, it's always been historically in any kind of healthcare and wellness marketing, like because it's been very TV dominated and linear, you've kind of had time to look for insights because your planning cycles were always 3 months or 6 months, as you say.
Absolutely.
And so now when you speed up that process, the implication for the content creation is also changed. And you're like, okay, well, how can I be more culturally resonant and relevant? How do I create smaller form content in a way that is compliant but feeds the beast, because now I've got the opportunity to find all this new information and stuff about what the patient's doing. So it really changes the production cycles as well.
Sure, and I think you have the creative element, which I believe in the not so distant future will increasingly be formed more by data. The creative itself will be more dynamic, probably dynamically generated based on those data inputs. And the fact that we're moving into increasingly more programmatic activation, all digital, means that we actually now have the tools to take data, a real-time personalization on the creative, the real-time personalization on the targeting, do the real-time matchmaking, and the real-time, effectively creative generation and matchmaking that solves all the pieces for deeper personalization.
But I think that the hesitancy I've seen is like when you talk to health marketers about that, there's a challenge where they're like, oh, but how will I get the compliance done? Like, how will it go through approval? And so you're like, well, I think it creates, like some of the space and time that it creates is space and time to actually make more assets. So that either they've got more time for approval, or you've got multiple variations that have approval that allow you to be that much more responsive. And that's so new to everybody. That's like almost the next piece of this puzzle to solve with everyone.
I'm very excited about that. And I think to your point about measurement before, the ability now to measure not just a dozen different creative performance, but thousands or maybe even tens of thousands or millions of permutations of that same creative with different elements to it, different backgrounds, different people, and then being able to test that performance in real time will be, I think, probably the next frontier of where we're going here.
Which weirdly comes back to where we were a year ago, because that representation, like the equity marketplace and access is also true of what sort of content, because people need to see themselves show up in that piece of ad. And that gets so much easier when you're doing what you just described to represent people in a different way as well. Yeah, it's really interesting.
So Greg, this has been a great conversation as usual. I look forward to our annual Cannes meeting
here and discussion.
For us,
right here, 12 months, every 12 months.
Great. I think the overall direction of where we're going is the ability to take innovative scientific treatments, right, and clinically efficacious, right, we're able to get products into the hands of patients that need it the most, in a moment in time where those products are increasingly becoming more personalized themselves through personalized therapeutics. It just necessitates that there's smaller and smaller patient populations that need to be addressed and get the hands into, which I think the era of these, kind of big brand drugs are kind of coming to the wayside, right? I mean, obviously with the notable exception being GLP-1s. But outside of that, you look at like personalized cancer therapies in the oncology space in particular. It's a super exciting time on the scientific side. And I think as marketers, I'd be curious to get your thoughts. As marketers, our job is to make it as efficient as possible to bring these life-saving treatments to market. And if we can lower that barrier from a cost and increase the efficiency of getting those drugs into market, I think the most important job of the marketer is to help get more drugs to market faster in a way that is more efficient. And so I think from the direction of what we will talk about this time next year, I'm excited about the impact that our two organizations are doing to further advance that idea and that belief that marketing has a real role to play. And maybe just to wrap it up, what, through your view, what do you think it'll be that we're talking about in the next 12 months from now?
I think the key unlock, hearing you say it that way, is actually like this. We're sort of on a journey of democratization together. Right? So like last year we talked about that access and healthcare and the marketplaces. I think this year when we're talking about accessing the data for marketers, you're talking about democratizing that data and making it feel like everybody can access it and generate those insights. And I think that's what's really exciting about the journey, because healthcare has historically either been closed book, too many silos, difficult to access, complex. And what this technology is unlocking, and I think what's great about what we're doing together, is around accessibility and democratization, whether it's for the marketer or for the patient in the end. So I hope that we're really talking about more sort of success stories again in 12 months' time.
I have no doubt we will.
Yeah, great.